I have never pretended to be an important filmmaker. I have never pretended that any movie I made was important. I have struggled to make them entertaining. That's what we do. We entertain people.
Voici l'un des plus grands cinéastes d'action. Copié, pillé, son style a marqué à jamais le cinéma mondial. Impossible de passer à côté du monstre de Predator, du t-shirt blanc de John McClane ou du charme tout british de Thomas Crown.
Pretty good. I like this.
À peine 11 films en 35 ans de carrière pour ce New-Yorkais qui déteste parler de lui. Forte tête, peu enclin à négocier avec les studios de cinéma.
Does that make sense? Do you see what I mean? Okay.
Il revient juste pour nous sur une carrière folle, faite de hauts et de nombreux bas.
You want me to talk about this? I can. Anyway, you want me to start?
Voici la carte blanche du grand John McTiernan.
John McTiernan, bonjour.
Bonjour.
Who first took you to a theater when you were a kid?
My family were all lawyers. My mother had gone to college. First one in her family who went to college, right? And her husband didn't want her to go to work. She was mostly terribly bored because she wasn't allowed to go out and work. So she used to go to the movies. So I saw everything. All of these mass market 1950s movies, like Cat on a Hot Tin Roof and Elephant Walk and The High and the Mighty and like all the Elizabeth Taylor movies, Giant, all the Rock Hudson movies, all those movies. You know, when I was 10, 11, 12, 13, I was watching Westerns. And I loved all the John Ford Westerns. I loved Truffaut, I loved Buñuel, I loved everything of Fellini.
Why did you watch these movies? Those European movies and everything?
Because the Europeans were doing better movies. They were inventing all sorts of stuff, particularly French directors.
You were talking about Truffaut. I read that you watched what we call La Nuit Américaine, like 20 times in a row during 2 days.
I wanted to know how to make a movie. So it was really about reverse engineering. I wanted to go see what is a movie. You know, I spent probably, 24, 28 hours watching that movie over and over. 6 times a day, twice. So that you forget about the plot. And finally, it seemed to me that I could actually see what I was looking at. That anything at that level, you have to teach yourself. There's nowhere you're going to get a class that's going to teach you. So I went about trying to teach myself how it worked.
But let me understand, at what moment did you say to yourself, I want to be a filmmaker?
All of the absentee time I was allowed at Juilliard for that semester, and I would invest it in looking at that Truffaut film. It was probably that day.
But you were from a family of lawyers. Your parents, they were scared?
My mother was very upset, but my father, no. My mother was very ambitious. And she was afraid that I would, that I would be a bum. My father was wiser and, believed that one has to follow whatever you're really interested in. As long as you're doing something and doing it energetically, then he was quite happy.
Used to be mine. I gave it to Grandpa when I went away.
Oh, this is the beginning of Grapes of Wrath. And I see that dolly in there.
You reckon they're dead?
Ah,
I never heard nothing about it.
Tommy?
but look how he's lighting the scene with a candle.
Muley. Where's my folks, Muley?
Why, they gone.
I know they're gone, but where are they gone?
They couldn't
It's Muley Grove.
actually light a scene with a
the preacher,
candle
don't
then.
you? I ain't no preacher
So
anymore. All right,
there's
you
a
remember the
light
band, don't
built
you?
into that candlestick.
Glad to see you. No,
It
where are
was
my
very
folks?
hard
They gone.
to create these
Down
effects
to your Uncle
then.
John's. Well, the way it happens, the way it happened to me, a man come one day.
Fact of the matter, Muley, after what them dusters done to the land, the tenant system don't work no more. They don't even break even, much less show a profit. Why, one man and a tractor can handle 12 or 14 of these places. You just pay them a wage and take all the crop.
Yeah, but we couldn't do on any less than what our share is now. Well,
This
the
movie
children
is
ain't
one of
getting
John
as neat
Ford's
as it
first.
is.
And it's a very
It-
political movie.
I can't help that. All I know is I got my orders. They told me to tell you to get off, and that's what I'm telling you.
You mean get off my own land?
Now, don't go to blaming me. It ain't my fault.
This film is about the people throughout the lower Midwest who in the 1930s, because of the drought, emigrated to California.
His fault because the bank tells him what to do.
What do you like about John Ford?
I like his politics. He was American Irish, which means he deeply believed in Roosevelt's revolution. He was an egalitarian.
I'm right here to tell you, mister, there ain't nobody gonna push me off my land. My grandpa took up this land 70 years ago. My pa was born here. We was all born on it. And some of us was killed on it.
This is a mass market movie about Henry Fonda just came back from prison, and these two other guys are homeless men. But he made a movie about those people.
Sure as you touch my house with that cat, I'm gonna blow you plumb to kingdom come.
You ain't gonna blow nobody nowhere. First place, they'd hang in, you know it. For another, it wouldn't be 2 days before they'd send another guy up here to take my place. Now go on, get out of the way.
I went to the American Film Institute, and I was a fellow there for a long time, 4 years. And that's a graduate school. And from there, I started writing screenplays. And the premise was that I would, the hope was that I would write a screenplay that someone wanted to do enough that they would let an idiot like me direct it.
And 1 year after Nomads, you made Predator.
I decided that Predator was a good project because it was innocent. It had no pretensions. It was a silly premise, okay? Arnold fights a monster from outer space in a jungle. That's a popcorn movie. It doesn't claim to be anything but entertaining. No one could think it was an important movie.
And it took you 25 minutes to show us a first action scene. And I watched the remake they made. It took them 30 seconds.
Well, it's just I don't know. It's a style. If they show action in the first 10 seconds or first minute or something, that's just they're teasing. It also shows desperation. It shows that they don't really have much confidence in this. I don't know. Some people sort of think like pornographers. They, just desperately want anything they can get. If you put the action in the first 5 minutes, well, what are you going to do 25 minutes in?
But you know that today it's not possible to do that kind of movies anymore.
Giant corporations bought up all the studios in the States, and they only make comic books. They don't make movies about real people anymore. You can tell I really don't like comic book and superhero movies.
When you made Die Hard, we were in the middle of action movies with macho He-Man like Arnold in The Terminator or Stallone in Rambo. That's the opposite of John McClane.
Bruce Willis was not suave. He was a working class hero, and I tried to let the audience know that he was, let the audience know who he really was. Bruce was always, particularly in that phase of his life, was a man who was tormented. He didn't like himself. He was very unhappy. He was very angry, terribly angry. And all of the humor that he had came out of that anger. If you want this guy to be the hero, you have to let the audience into him. The way I've always described him is he's a mouse, and there's an eagle coming at him, and he goes like this. So what we tried to do was let the audience see that every time he was a smartass, it was an act of courage on his part. It was an act of denying the pain he felt. Do you see what I mean? Does that make any sense to you? Okay. It's hard, but he was denying, he was rising above his internal pain. This is an amazing sequence. No one had ever seen a sequence like this. No one had ever done a moving camera like this. Now see, he has dolly tracks hidden down there at the bottom of the trench. And there's someone who is brushing, just out of camera range, he's cleaning all the stuff off it.
15, 14, 13.
By the time you're through with this little sequence, you have a very good idea of what the world of this movie is.
3, 2, 1, 0.
This battle scene is really revolutionary. He's got a dolly, and he's using a long lens going all the way through this stuff in order to stack it all up when he actually has a very little set. And not a lot of people, look at this shot, look at that shot. The long lens shot where he picked up Douglas. It's very hard to talk about revolutionary pieces of work because if they're truly revolutionary, they have been copied over and over and over again. So that when you look at them 40 years later, everybody says, well, what's the big deal about this? I've seen a dozen movies like this. Well, you hadn't in 1960 or 57 when he shot this. Certainly after I made Die Hard, I got 10,000 versions of people wanting to do the same thing. And it's an unfortunate thing is that once, people are always trying to turn things into a formula. Okay, we'll do Die Hard on a boat. We'll do Die Hard on... Blah, blah, blah. Some guy even sent me a script. He's really a brilliant young screenwriter. He sent me a script that was Die Hard in a building. With a straight face. He had no, it was like, my God. Yeah, so I've gotten an awful lot of movies that were, people just wanted me to make the same movie I had already made.
I think you said no to Mission Impossible, to Batman Forever, to Speed, to Terminator 3.
Yeah, all of those.
Why?
And loads of others. Well, I just didn't want to make the same movie again. I never saw Fellini do that. You know, I never saw men who were good at it. I never saw Kubrick do that. I never saw him go make the same movie again. I mean, talk about making different movies. And as a career, he made the most different movies one could ever imagine. Everyone was completely in a whole new world. So he was constantly working. He was constantly inventing.
But did you try to do that? Or because of your success, you had to do other action movies? You were cursed by some of your success, maybe.
Oh,
I don't
sure.
know.
Well, actually, what I should have done was, I stopped living in Hollywood, but I should have come to Europe, which Kubrick did. He went to England. Yes, I should have left after. Certainly, well, Red October wasn't a bad experience, but I certainly should have left after Last Action Hero. Because that was, you know, one of these crazy giant, they're not even movies, you know, it's like you're working for the executives of an amusement park, and they're putting in a new roller coaster.
You're talking about Rollerball?
Yeah, it was a terrible movie. Now we're in Red October.
Make sure the count is accurate, Doctor. We must get the entire crew out.
Yes, sir. Mastrodance reports raft secure and evacuation proceeding.
Very good.
Now, it wasn't special effects, it was real. We built what appeared to be a submarine out of steel on top of a couple of barges, and actually shot in the ocean and put all those men out there on that deck. And I was out there with a handheld camera with Jan de Bont, who also had a handheld camera. Half of them were real Russian immigrant kids in Los Angeles, and the other half were Coast Guardsmen who were experienced lifesavers. So nobody drowned in all of this. This was the morning we destroyed 3 Panavision cameras and just kept shooting because they would get wet. And it would hurt the electronics, and they'd shut down and they wouldn't work anymore. So that when I went back to the studio that day, they teased me that morning, by 8:30 in the morning, I had destroyed $750,000 worth of Panavision cameras, which was an exaggeration. It was nothing like that, but.
He's ready. Seahawk 1, release on my command. Drop. Now, now, now. Range to target, 900 yards. 800 yards.
And this is something here that John Ford would have done.
Yards.
At the time,
600 yards.
there were no admirals who were African American. And I made James Earl Jones.
500 yards.
I made him the admiral.
300 yards. The torpedo is detonated.
Here, you'd see him.
No. Understand, Commander? That torpedo did not self-destruct. You heard it hit the hull, and I was never here.
I am personally proud of the fact, I mean nothing now, but proud of the fact that here is an African American man. He is the admiral, and there are a bunch of young white officers saluting and snapping and jumping to his orders. I'm personally happy that I did that.
Last time you were on the set was 2003. Do you miss it?
Sometimes, for years, no. For years, I didn't want to work again. I did not want to work on bad movies, so I'd rather not work. I miss it now. I would like, although, I confess I don't really, I don't want to work on other people's movies anymore. There's so much ego involved, and there's so many, so many people who want to claim credit. It's like now you have to do the work on the script way up front and get everybody's agreement, and it's all contractual. And it also, that makes it much more difficult because you can't invent anything on the set. You can't see what's in front of your face and make changes that are appropriate. It's interesting that the filmmakers that I sort of respect most, who were working shortly before me, both realized that they should leave Hollywood, and I didn't. And I'm sitting here suddenly saying, how could I have been so stupid? Why didn't I see that? This is not something I've said in other interviews. I've only just realized it, which makes me feel really stupid.
Merci, monsieur.
Merci.
Was it okay for you?
Yes, I hope that was clear too.
Yeah,
Good.
Don't worry.